So certain businesses in the country are going to open their doors 24 hours a day in order to make up for the lockdown loss, the money that they lost during the coronavirus lockdown when they were closed. And this immediately stinks to me of what's going to happen in the future. Because those of us at the bottom of the pile have kept the country running during the pandemic. People like myself, I work in a supermarket, I go out, I stack shelves, I serve people money, I deal with people abusing me and abusing my colleagues because we run out of whatever it is that they want. A colleague of mine had his shoulder dislocated when he was swamped trying to put out milk during the lockdown when we had the panic buying. I have physically had to fight off people trying to mob me for pasta and bread and things like that when they've come in during the lockdown. So people like me and people like my colleagues and people like my wife, who is an NHS worker, and she's been an NHS worker all her working life, as is her mother, as is her sister, we've kept the country afloat. We've kept the country running. We've kept it from collapsing in on itself into anarchy, for a want of a better word. And looks like we're going to get the bottom end of the stick, as we always do. As we did when the banks slipped into economic crisis, the bottom of the pile got the worst end of the deal, with austerity and with measures and cutbacks that should have been come from the top, coming from the bottom up. So with this 24-hour thing, this looks to me like the government in the future is going to pass legislation that makes it perfectly legal for, let's say, you to have 5-hour rests in between shifts. Makes it perfectly legal for your boss to not give you a day off in a week. Makes it perfectly legal for you not to have holiday pay or sick pay or extended sick leave if you need it, or anything like that. All the workers' rights that socialists have given you over the last 70 odd years or so, they're going to be stripped away. And this is incredibly handy. With the fact that we're leaving the EU, we look increasingly more and more likely set to leave without a deal with the EU, which means that all that European legislation, because an awful lot of workers' rights legislation is EU safeguarding EU law. So the laws were passed in the UK Parliament. They are, however, safeguarded within EU law, which means that we can't repeal them. Because if we repeal them, the EU courts will say, oh no, actually you can't repeal that. And with us out of the EU and no deal with the EU, the UK government can repeal any law it damn well likes. And with Boris Johnson and his Conservative Party, and they've got the whomping majority that they've got at the moment, even with his Tory rebels, he managed to get his legislation passed for the tier system. He's going to be able to do whatever the hell he damn well pleases, because his majority is the biggest it's been in hundreds of years. And with that useless prat Sir Keith Starmer in the Labour Party abstaining on everything, there's going to be nobody left to fight for us. There's going to be nobody left to fight for the corner of working people who held this country up on our shoulders when it was in its biggest crisis since the Second World War. Nobody's going to be there to fight for us. Nobody in the mainstream political framework of things is going to be there to fight our corner, because they ousted Jeremy Corbyn, got rid of him, demonised him as an anti-Semite, kicked him out of the Labour Party, and anybody who's standing up for him and saying you shouldn't kick him out of the Labour Party, they're being kicked out of the Labour Party. So nobody in the Labour Party is going to actually stick up for us. Angela Rayner has turned their backs on us. She said she will suspend thousands of members if she has to. Anybody who denies that Jeremy Corbyn was an anti-Semite, you're out. So she's done a complete U-turn. In fact, she should start with herself, because she herself said that if she thought Jeremy Corbyn was an anti-Semite or didn't take anti-Semitism in the Labour Party seriously, she would not have sat on his front bench with him. So she should suspend herself, resign the whip, bye-bye, you're out of there. Nobody in the Labour Party at the moment, bar of course Jeremy Corbyn's former allies, but they're being increasingly pushed out, is going to stick up for us. And I just think it's an utter bummer, an absolute bummer that we have kept this country up a whole year plus, more than that even. We keep this country up when there's not a pandemic. If there weren't road sweepers, shop workers, NHS porters, junior doctors, taxi drivers, emergency service workers, all those kinds of people, this country would collapse. We have seen over the last years, it has demonstrated exactly what happens when billionaires don't go to work. What happens? Nothing. What happens when I don't go to work? Shelves don't get stacked. When my wife don't go to work, people don't get doctor's appointments. When the road sweepers don't go to work, roads become clogged and dirty and messy. When police and ambulance and fire service don't go to work, well, we have crime. We have people having medical emergencies. We have fires. And the Tory party is going to completely turn around on us, and they did all that clapping for us. All that clapping, that was great. But now they're going to completely stab us in the front and make us pay the brunt, because that's what they do. That's what the Tory party do. And you could argue, of course, the people in Primark, people in these companies that are opening for 24 hours a day, haven't kept the country up during their lockdown, because they've been locked down, their businesses have been closed, they've been furloughed and whatever. But for me, you attack one of us, you attack all of us. Primark workers are just as essential as supermarket workers, in my opinion, because if you go into Primark and there's no Primark workers there, you're not getting served, you're not buying any clothes. So we are important. We need to fight for our own workers' rights, because I tell you now, Boris Johnson and his Tory goons are going to keep lining the pockets of his friends and him, taking it out of us and making us pay for their fallout, for their mistake, for their decisions that they made during this pandemic that cost the economy, damaged the economy. We're going to pay for it, and we need to actually fight back and actually say to Boris Johnson, say to your local MP, sign petitions, write letters, demonstrate, do whatever the hell you have to do to safeguard your workers' rights. Because at the end of the day, if those workers' rights are stripped back, you might be perfectly okay with losing your right to a holiday, your right to sick pay, your right to a day off, your right to 11 hours in between shifts. You lose that right, your kids lose that right, your grandkids lose that right. Once that's gone, it's gone. Do you know how long it took for people to fight for those rights? It took hundreds of years to get health and safety legislation in, to make sure that you're safe at work, you're protected, that you can strike without being fired and everything else. That took hundreds of years to fight for and get. It won't be easily won again if we lose it.